experiences.
And you? Probably about pretty much the same, I imagine.
Yeah, I would guess the whole goal of the internship was to train at US-based organizations and try to implement what you learned here in your organizations back home if applicable. So yeah, that's the main goal.
All right, let's go to Libya.
Yeah.
Egypt's right next door. Though Libya is got a huge country. I think the coastline's like 1,000 miles. Very, very, very large. Where you were sitting in Egypt, did you have any idea that there was an uprising coming in Libya, or did it catch you by surprise? I know our CIA has been caught by surprise many times in the Middle East, but did you have any idea this was coming? Or did it just erupt? Was there talk about an uprising before it took place, or anything in the Egyptian press, or any discussion in Egypt? Was this a total surprise to people?
In Libya, it was expected because it already started in Tunisia, then it moved to Egypt. Then you had dates in Bahrain, in Yemen, in Libya. So yeah, we were sure something would happen, but we were not sure if it would succeed or not. So you knew the event would take place and it will have support. But the outcome was not known, and it still is not known until now in Libya.
And you?
We expected this to be in Libya, because Libya is between Tunisia and Egypt, and it must be affected by the uprising here and there. So, but we are not certain about the consequences of this uprising in Libya, because the situation is so different from Egypt and Tunisia. Libya doesn't have institutions. It is not a state of institutions, and I think it is. There are a lot of tribes there, so the situation would be very different from our point of view.
And Kareem, you sort of alluded to what triggered the events in Egypt, and I believe it started in Tunisia.
Yeah.
Either of you tell us about what happened in Tunisia to set off the uprising there?
Basically, there was a guy called Bouazizi who used to sell fruit. He was like, he was selling fruit in the street. So the police took his cart, and a policewoman insulted him by slapping him across the face. So basically, he set fire to himself, and that sparked the uprising in Tunisia. When the Tunisian revolution succeeded, people in Egypt saw that a dictator can be removed by the people and that they can't stay on forever. So when the uprising came in Egypt for 18 days with pressure, it succeeded. So basically you had two big examples in the Middle East that you can remove dictators by simply protesting. But in Libya it was different. So I guess that's what sparked the revolutions in the Middle East, basically. You had two big countries, big examples that people can do it and can change the status quo.
Sometimes you hear in the United States that one person doesn't make a difference, but you got one person setting up uprisings all over the Middle East. Yeah. To let you know, we have a special election coming up here in Worcester County, Democrat and Republican, actually one vote difference.
Yeah.
And after they went to court, they were tied. They have a runoff. So one person can make a huge difference in the world. That's why we always tell people, get out and vote. You never know when there'll be a decision there. Let me ask you, you were to come before the uprising in Libya. That delayed you. No doubt while you were in Egypt, you were watching TV or reading the newspaper or going on the internet. You were hearing about Libya. What were you hearing at the time? What was coming through to the Egyptian public? What was going on?
Yeah, well, I think what's going on in Libya was triggered by the success of both the revolutions in Tunisia and in Egypt. So we were watching the TV, we were reading the newspapers, watching programs about Libya, about the Libyan revolution, and we had a lot of people who went to Libya and we can ask them about the situation there, the situation before the revolution, how Gaddafi rules the country, how his family, how is the institutions there. So we think that we are very close to what's going on in Libya, and we expect this to happen because the situation is getting worse in Libya. So we had a lot of information about about Libya before the revolution and during the revolution, and we think, but we do not, we are not certain about the consequences of the revolution in Libya, because the situation is so different between Libya and both countries, Egypt and Tunisia.
What about you, Kareem? What were you hearing?
The Egyptian media and the army have been carefully handling the Libyan issue because you have 2 million Egyptians living and working in Egypt.
Oh, I had no idea of that.
Yeah, so basically that's a huge number of Egyptians there. So that's why the army doesn't want to intervene, and that's why the media is careful of what they're doing. There has been some aid given from Egyptian citizens to the Libyans in the east, but the media and the army has been handling very carefully because you don't want to put 2 million Egyptians in jeopardy in Libya.
That's why it's so important to have you here today. I mean, I'm learning things I don't think the American public is hearing. And also because there is an oil industry in Libya. There are many other foreigners from other countries in Libya as well. I understand ships were arriving on the coast and evacuating people from Libya. So I know the population is only about 6 million people in Libya. You mentioned 2 million Arabs and others too. I mean, I don't think that's been realized over here.
2 million Egyptians.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is it's such a huge country, and you got 6 million Libyans, and right next door is Egypt, which is somewhat smaller, and you have 85 million people. So even though they're next door to each other, it's amazing how different they all are. Let me ask you, how do you think Gaddafi was able to stay in power? He's been there 40 years. I mean, even Castro has been there now about 51 years, but that's a long time, and Mubarak was there like 30 years or so. This is a guy who's been there for 41 years. How was he able to stay there so long in power?
I think this is for 2 reasons. The first reason, which is Libya is consisted of many tribes, and Gaddafi himself is one of the biggest tribes there. So he makes some sort of coalition between tribes, and this is the first reason why he stayed so long in power. The other reason, which is Libya is a very rich country, so he used to give the people the basic needs, and doesn't talk about democracy, doesn't talk about liberties. So, and I think he doesn't also pay attention to education, to educating people themselves, educating his people. So the people in Libya are not too much educated, and this is a strategy or a policy adopted by Gaddafi and his family to let people stay as they are without education, just give them bread and other food. And also he stayed in power for another reason, which is he has a good network with relationships with the nearby dictators, like in the Arab countries, and also he had very good relations with European and other international leaders. We saw many times many European leaders coming to Gaddafi and shake hands with him, sitting to him, and like Blair and Sarkozy. And
it's very interesting because it does seem that the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, his relationship with the other countries has improved drastically. At one time, he didn't have this relationship. He has it now. And that sort of puts these countries in a strange position. They've been working with him, they need the oil, and then you have the uprising. And they're not quite sure how to handle this, but now they have decided. Anything you want to add about how
including the U.S., by the way, is one of those countries.
Ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, the U.S. is one of those countries that recently established pretty good ties with Gaddafi, and now they're kind of embarrassed.
So it puts them in a difficult position. Anything you want to add about staying in power, and then we'll talk